Stu, and this is my next reading week or so's TBR video. I'm currently finishing up the last book on my last week's or my return home from my trip to Oregon, TBR. However, one book that got bumped, which was The Girl Who Sang to the Buffalo, became available to me as a digital book, and I am going to read that first, and then I'll do that week of reading, or that reading period in review. But I did formulate this upcoming TBR. The prompt is 2-word titles. Easy peasy. I came up with a prompt in thinking that there were I was noticing a couple other, after I read The Woman, which I put on the last week's TBR because I was like, I noticed I kept avoiding it for whatever reason. I was just kind of looking through my bookshelf and looking at some books that had been sitting there for a while that just didn't make other TBRs, and decided that this was a good way to get some variety and also get some of those books off. So here is it at a glance, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why I chose each book and kind of the modality that I'm going to interact with the book, or the plans for the book. I might give a little information or what I've come to know the book is about, at least the publication date, and maybe a little information about why I'm excited to read it. I try not to do too much like reading reviews or reading even too much synopsis when I'm getting into books, because I want to sort of keep my naivety and my curiosity alive and let myself form my own relationship with the book. So this one I already talked about, both in a short and in my recent haul video, because it's really a front list. It's up for the Carol Shields Prize. It's shortlisted for the Carol Shields Prize. It's shortlisted for the Women's Prize, to name a few. And I think a lot of people might be reading this book right now, and normally that's not me, but serendipitously I found it. The protagonist of this book is 45, and she is going to go on a cross-country trip, and then she decides to reinvent herself. I believe there is some discussion and or challenging of the roles of women, of wives. There's some discovery of sexuality in this book, maybe even some discovery of the American landscape. I think because this book is so popular, one thing I can predict I'll be annoyed with, if these are not new ideas, it's just in juxtaposition as I'm reading currently, and I'll go into it more in my book and review. I'm just reading a book about women and self-discovery, and their images of themselves and each other's bodies is still very objectifying, and I'm bothered by it. So I don't like that, and I don't think it's that new to challenge that, and are also, if that's what this book really does in profound ways, I'm really excited to read it. In any case, this is going to be first. And this is going to be first because it's kind of like all the hype right now, and I normally, again, don't do front lists, but also I only have the physical copy, so I might have to intersplice, and probably will intersplice other books in it, because with physical copies I like to read in natural light and not put any eye strain on myself, given the amount that I'm reading. And so it's a bright sunny day. I'm still on a break from work, so I think that if I start this, say tomorrow, I could get through this book, and then I could have read it at any time, but I wanted to make sure that it was on these days before I go back to work, and it's bright and sunny outside. That was a lot to say, but the next book is Dear Edward. Dear Edward has also been made into a show. I hauled this book specifically because I was book hauling with a friend who's a show watcher, and only way this person could talk to me about books while I was book hauling was if they've been made into shows, and I decided to really kind of give it a chance so that I could then have later discussions with this person about what I thought about the book, what they thought about the show. in any case, these are two sort of like popular books back to back. This one was 2019 though, so it's quite a bit older, whereas the Miranda July one is 2024. It's a really recent book. But anyway, this is coming of age, which is one of my favorite sort of central themes of a novel, and the idea of being a survivor is also something that's interesting to me. I was able to procure this book in Libby on audio, so I like now, as I'm going to be out walking a lot more given the change in weather, I'm liking the access to the audiobooks. I found that it was also very helpful to listen to audio in times when pulling out a book wasn't quite right. So I'm going to go ahead and start this book as soon as this reading TBR starts in audio, no matter where I'm at, with Miranda July, if I'm on a walk or whatever condition, that audio might be great, because I have only the physical and the audio copy. Those two books were also the only two books that I got at thrift stores, and they're both really recent hauls. Everything else is not a recent haul, and in fact, they all come from little free libraries, and I've had them for a while, some of them a month or two now. So this is my spring cleaning a little bit as well. I was brave and decided to read it or unhaul it, this nonfiction. I've said several times, it's not my nonfiction era. I have a different relationship with nonfiction, and I've just decided that I would intersplice this in. Flower Confidential. It's obviously a 2-word title, and I have this in digital. It just became available to me. It was actually on hold in digital, so this could be the one that I might be reading all 3 of these books at the same time, just depending on the situations that I'm surrounded with and how I'm able to engage with books. Also with nonfiction, I don't necessarily, their nonfiction doesn't read the same way with me. They're not page turners the way that fiction is. I'm not excited to get to the next part to learn more about the character or find out where it's going. So I want to give myself a lot of time for this book through the rest of the books in this TBR. But also, if I'm just not grooving it, I have that friend that's a gardener that might be interested in giving whatever feedback I could give them from how far I get into the book, or I can just, not finish it, put it back into a little free library. Somebody might be really excited as flowers are blooming, and maybe that's part of the reason my nose is still stuffed. The next book, I believe, was on the short or long list for the Women's Prize. Speaking of Women's Prize for a fiction, and this is called Ordinary People by Diana Evans. I believe the setting of this is London. I believe this is an interrogation of marriage and parenthood, so it could be kind of an interesting pairing with that Miranda July book, depending on how they're the introspection of marriage and parenting. I believe, that's all. That's all I know of this book. For some reason, Ordinary People, the title reminds me of Ordinary Human Feelings, which I thought was a delightful book, but also really, really, really heavy. Like I needed palate cleansing after that. So I'm expecting this one maybe to be a little bit lighter, but who's to know? Next is Oh Beautiful. And the setting of this book, from the cover, is North Dakota. And I believe this author is Korean American, this protagonist is Korean American, and they're a writer, and they're assigned to North Dakota during the oil boom. When I first found this book, I was really super excited. I was like, that is a great setting. That is an introspection that I'm really looking forward to. And for as this, it just got pushed down. And since then I've read a couple of middle American small town books where the protagonist and the author are ethnic minorities in this little small town, and what it's like to grow up or be like. how you deal with race, ethnicity, and gender identity in little small town, middle American settings. But I'm really excited for this book. Honestly, of all of them, I think this is the one that I had the most anticipation in reading. Its publication date is 2021. And then the last one I have planned, and I actually had another one planned, but the All Fours bumped it out, and I put it back for another day's TBR, and that's The Tin Man. And I feel like I'm kind of sandwiching this week's TBR is a book that covers queer themes and ending with a book that covers queer themes. I think one of the things that I read in the synopsis of this book, that it's almost a love story, but it's not that simple. And to the best of my knowledge, this is a queer romance, and this is also, the setting is London. So I have a couple London settings this TBR, this week's TBR as well. The publication date of this book is 27. The Mode publication date from Little Free Library Books, 2017. This is a very beautiful cover, and I was really compelled by the cover, knowing nothing about this book. So when I pulled it, and then when I pulled it out, I was then so excited to learn that these are covering, this is covering a almost love story, but not quite as simple as that. This is something that I'm really excited for. It's a nice small book, a good way maybe to end the week. I mean, 6 books is very zealous. So especially with one nonfiction and 2 one that's audio, which would, takes a lot longer to listen to an audio for me and maybe most people than to read. And one that's only got the physical, so I have to have the right sort of reading conditions. But I say all of that to say, it feels like this week feels really diverse, and I feel quite a lot of enthusiasm, especially after my traveling week was was about books that weren't that heavy and were just kind of page turner parts of series books. I feel like this is going to be a more of an emotional endeavor this week, and I might need a palate cleanser at the end, and then I'll sort of throw that in, kind of like I did the other book this week, if that's needed, and then talk about it in the week in review.